Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Isaac, and let's talk about some stories. And today we're going to be talking about My Hero Academia chapter 369, Many Years. The chapter starts off with a flashback of All For One holding the second user of One For All in his hands, and it seems like the second user has been completely defeated. His face is bloodied, and it's probably the battle where he got his scar, and for some reason, All For One is crying. In the spoilers, it says that a bullet comes from behind and head towards All For One, and All For One stops it right before it hits. Now, in the spoilers, it was still kind of unclear, but thankfully this chapter 100% clears it up. It would seem that the second user of One For All is actually able to apply his quirk to objects that he is not in direct contact with. Now, is the second user applying his quirk to an object that he has not touched? Possible, but we can also assume that this is a bullet that he has touched in the past and he's now activating his quirk retroactively, which begs the question, how long can he activate his quirk? How long does his quirk last on an object that he has interacted with? As the bullet shoots off without even looking, All For One stops it. And to add insult to injury, like, all this is happening in his head, right? Like, he's having an evil villain monologue where he thinks to himself, he's like, bro, your pea shooter of a quirk, your pathetic quirk isn't enough. He's like, you were not meant to be more than anything but a tiny little bug. And that's when we cut back to reality and we see Deku covered in some type of aura. I'm telling you, we're like on some Dragon Ball Z level. As Deku is coming in with another smash powered by Gear Shift, One For All just thinks to himself, why can't I see all of you? All of you being the vestiges. He can see Yoichi and the second user. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Banjo, his quirk Black Whip was not that strong of a quirk to begin with, but with the accumulated power of One For All, it became significantly more devastating. Since this has happened with Banjo, it is only fair to believe that the same thing has been happening with the quirk Gear Shift, and with the raw sort of power of One For All. And then on top of that, you overlap Gear Shift. The amount of power, the smash that Deku is able to output is enough to bend the laws of physics. Now that we got that explanation out of the way, we see Deku come in with a quintuple Detroit smash. As Shigaraki is sinking deeper and deeper into the earth from the impact of the quintuple Detroit smash, we see Deku has already left the area, meaning that our boy is moving faster than the impact of his strikes. Deku is now moving so fast that it almost looks like he's simultaneously retreating from his last attack while moving forward to his next attack. Now, that being said, All For One is still a master of planning, and he realizes that even if his eyes cannot keep up, he can still predict where he's going to be based off of the angle and speed at which Deku is traveling. As Izuku Midori is heading towards All For One, he takes a swing and a huge miss. That's when we get more information on the quirk Gear Shift. That's when we see Deku use low gear, going from overdrive probably to first gear. And that's when we get a little bit more information on the quirk Gear Shift. Turns out the quirk Gear Shift can change your speed ignoring inertia. So the boy could be going at the speed of sound and come to a sudden stop with no penalty. But the Demon Lord himself, being as quick as ever, decides to go in for another swing. But Deku, using his danger sense, uses smoke screen to avoid the attack. And this is where All For One makes another mistake, looking for Deku on the ground, simply to realize that he has not fallen yet. As All For One is looking for Shigaraki, Black Whip comes out of nowhere, grabs him, and pulls him into the air. And that's when we find out that the previous users of One For All have actually been guiding Deku in this fight, telling him what to do and when to do it. They straight up give him a play-by-play by telling him to use smokescreen to blind his vision, then go into the air using float, restrain him with Black Whip, and then come back down with Fa Jin, the Fa Jin that you stored up using the quintuple Detroit smash. And to make sure that you put him down properly, use overdrive as well. And then we get an insane panel of Deku coming in with overdrive, being backed by the 8 vestiges of One For All. Yes, although All Might is not dead, his vestige is there helping them out. With the combination of all of these quirks, Deku hits All For One so hard it destroys his finger armors around his chest and sends the pieces flying. Now, before we keep going into the chapter, there's a few things that I noticed in the previous panels. As Deku is charging towards All For One, we do get to see Lemillion is actually on the process of saving Nejire. Also do see Tamaki lying on the ground, seemingly lifeless, with someone standing over him, holding their head. Could this be the end of one of the big three? We also get a panel of Best Jeanist crawling towards Bakugo, probably going to go check on how he's doing with Edgeshot. After getting a hole put through his chest, the first user, Yoichi, pops up for a second and just like, I sympathize with you, brother. Not only that, but he also goes to say that he can see his brother, meaning that the hero with the round eyes, our boy Mirio, was correct, and the further they battle, the more they push him, the more the unity between both of them, All For One and Shigaraki, will continue to destabilize. Obviously, things are going great for the hero, but this is when the second user pops in and talks to Deku and he's like, look bro, this is where the going gets tough. Remember what Shimura told you, I do not need you to pass out right now. And we get a quick glance at Deku's face and we can see the strain that using all these quirks in tandem is putting on his body. When Deku put a hole through All For One's chest, he said he wasn't holding anything back anymore. And that's when we get a little bit of inner monologue from All For One. And he's like, quirks? Not holding anything back? Are you mocking me? He goes on to think to himself, he's like, I haven't been able to use any of my abilities thanks to that erasure dude. And plus the UA, it's basically a floating coffin. This fight has been unfair since the beginning, which is pretty ironic from a guy who literally has multiple quirks. But whatever. While thinking this to himself, All For One loses it and lets out a shriek of a scream. The hole in his chest closes up and 9 beams of light appear seemingly out of nowhere. Could this be his version of the Vestiges? Possibly, but the difference is that he did not gain these quirks willingly. He stole these quirks. If the Vestiges are there, they're probably not there of their own free will. Deku and Aizawa have noticed this change in All For One. Deku being confused and Aizawa instantly understanding that All For One still has a few tricks up of his sleeves. The chapter ends with us cutting back to Spinner of all peoples, all hulked out and drooling. Unfortunately, this is where the chapter ends. It seems like the following chapter will not be focusing on the fight, but we're going to be focusing on Spinner. Now, I don't think that this was the best time to switch over to Spinner of all people, but you know what? I'm not the writer, so I guess we gotta do what we gotta do, huh? What do you guys think those beams of light were? You let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, like it. If you disliked it, hit that dislike button. Any feedback is good feedback, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.